Jupiter Ascending is a 2015 science fiction action movie created by Lana and Lily Wachowski, the same duo who gave us the Matrix movies. The two have a somewhat contentious reputation as many of their films are bizarre and have a variety of problems stemming from flaws with their writing. This reached a breaking point with Jupiter Ascending, which is often viewed as the lowest point in their careers. The movie was a box office bomb, despised by critics and audiences alike. Nobody really knew what to make of this movie.
This movie centers on a cleaning woman who becomes mixed up in destiny and space and something. Ooh, pretty colorful shot.
It was derided as a bloated and confusing mess with subpar acting. It's unfortunate because the two seemed genuinely invested in the project. In their interview with Collider, they seemed to treat the movie and its ideas with reverence, excited to have made a film with a female lead, a unique design philosophy for the technology, and wildly expansive lore. Say what you want about the movie, it's not a product of laziness. The passion the Wachowskis brought to the film is evident, and that passion has sparked a small yet dedicated fan base of people who love this movie, flaws and all. I've seen so many reviews from people who are well aware the movie has problems, but love it regardless, seeing all the good mixed in with the bad. I'm one of these people. I was 14 when the movie was released. When I saw all the clips online, I became entranced. I had to see this movie. I bought the DVD and proceeded to watch it 3 times in 3 days, just soaking up the madness that was playing before me. Hell, the movie inspired me to write my own original story that I started at 14 and finished at 17, and oh boy does it read like it. This movie has sparked the creativity of so many, having a decent amount of fics on AO3, some with thousands of hits, and many of them shockingly well written. What is it about Jupiter Ascending that has, despite its reputation, gained it a fandom? This movie has lived rent-free in my head 4 years now, and it can't be contained any longer. I have to geek out about it before I explode. So, I won't waste your time any longer, let's get into it. The movie's story begins with a meeting between the main antagonist, Belem Abrasax, and his 2 siblings, Titus and Kalik. Titus was the one who called the meeting. He was going through some of the old Sheev work of their deceased mother, Serafi, and found that a highly coveted planet called Earth was owned by her and a part of Belem's inheritance. Titus attempts to purchase the planet from Belem. He's chastised by Kalik, who points out the planet is worth more than all of his estates combined. Belem rejects the offer and ends the meeting. Cut to Earth. We're introduced to our main character, Jupiter Jones. She's a young woman who lives at home with her mother and extended family who clean houses for a living. We get a brief montage of Jupiter's life where it's made clear she's unsatisfied and yearns for something better. In the dead of night, our secondary main character, Kane Wise, gains access to a fertility clinic where Jupiter has made an appointment to donate her eggs. Bounty hunters hired by Belem watch as Kane enters the building and attempt to kill him as he leaves. A short firefight ensues, none are injured, and Kane escapes. One of the bounty hunters, we'll call her Ponytails, suggests that they warn Belem of Kane's presence, but the other, we'll call him Magic Eye, disagrees. He has a plan and wants her in on it. Kalik is in contact with Magic Eye and Ponytails. She asks her advisor if it's safe to make a deal with them. He gives her a flowery speech that boils down to, "Trust me, it's fine," and Kalik gives the go-ahead. Belem returns to his home base, which is located in the storm of the planet Jupiter. He's greeted by his assistant, Mr. Knight. It's established that they have Jupiter's gene print and are under the belief Jupiter's name is Catherine Dunleavy, as that's the false name she used on her clinic paperwork. In the following scene, Jupiter helps out the real Catherine, whose name she borrowed, get ready for a date. While Jupiter is in the closet, Catherine is attacked by gray aliens, creatures called Keepers, who mistake her for their target. Jupiter takes photos of the attack, her phone rings, and the Keepers wipe her memory alongside Catherine, feeling their cover is blown. The next day, Jupiter goes to the clinic to have her operation done. While in the waiting room, she discovers the photos she took of the Keepers. Spooked, she tries to back out of the procedure as she's laid out on the table. The doctors reveal themselves to be Keepers in human disguises who attempt to kill her. Kane bursts in, kills the Keepers, and rescues Jupiter before she falls unconscious. Jupiter wakes 12 hours later, where Kane proceeds to explain that people are trying to kill her. He tells her that he's from another world. He's a splice, a lycantant, half man, half wolf, bred for the military. Belem's general, Mr. Skeleton, gives Belem the news that Jupiter was intercepted by Kane. Belem orders that they double their security deployment and destroy any ship that tries to enter or leave the planet. Kane's ship arrives to take him and Jupiter back to Titus. It's abruptly attacked by Keepers and fighter ships. ships. An extended action sequence ensues that ends with Jupiter and Cain stealing a car and escaping the city. In the car, Cain tells Jupiter that she seems to be the center of a war between the Abrasax siblings. This is also the scene where Cain confirms that he's working for Titus. Jupiter and Cain travel far outside the city to an outpost overseen by Stinger Apini, a marshal with the Aegis, space police, and Cain's old superior. The two parted ways on very bad terms and get in a fight when they see each other. Their fight riles up the bees that inhabit the property. They swarm around Jupiter and are entranced by her, becoming docile and mimicking her movements. The bees' behavior indicates that Jupiter is royalty. Stinger attends to the wounds Cain received in the battle in the city. There are scars on his back where he used to have wings, as he was a skyjacker, an elite branch of the Legion. This is where we learn that Cain is working for Titus in exchange for getting his position as skyjacker back. Belem's bounty hunters arrive and attack the house. During the fight, Jupiter is knocked unconscious by one of the bounty hunters, still loyal to Belem. Ponytails and Magic Eye kill him and the rest of Belem's keepers and escape the planet with Jupiter. Cain stows away as they take off. Magic Eye and Ponytails drop Jupiter off at Kalik's Alcazar. Jupiter wakes and is greeted by Kalik, who takes her to a shrine dedicated to her mother, Seraphi. She explains that Jupiter is Seraphi's reoccurrence, this universe's word for reincarnation. Kalik shows Jupiter what the family's business revolves around. She uses a fluid called Regenex that restores her youth. Despite Jupiter asking, Kalik doesn't say what Regenex is made from. She explains to Jupiter that Seraphi's future self was written into her will and is set to inherit Earth over Belem. This whole time, Cain has been searching the Alcazar for Jupiter. He catches up with them and informs them that he's called the Aegis, who'll be taking Jupiter to Orus, the true home planet of the human race. Once on the Aegis ship, Jupiter and Cain have a flirtatious exchange. Cain recognizes the class difference between the two and turns down Jupiter's advances. They arrive at their destination on Orus, the Commonwealth Ministries, the place where Jupiter will receive her entitlement, a process called Ascension. Once she's received her entitlement, Jupiter and Cain exit the Commonwealth Ministries. Jupiter, again, attempts to flirt with Cain. He's flustered and clearly shares her affection, but shuts her down a second time regardless. Stinger shows up with Titus's men. Since Cain was unable to take Jupiter directly to Titus, their agreement was broken. When Jupiter meets Titus, she informs him that he has no business detaining her and she can retaliate if he doesn't take her where she wants to go. He agrees to take her home to Earth, but asks her to dine with him. She accepts. Cain is locked in a prison cell, something Jupiter is unaware of. Over the course of the dinner, Jupiter is skeptical and untrusting of Titus. However, he gains her trust by revealing the truth about Regenex. It's made from harvested humans. Jupiter is disturbed by this. Titus says his mother came to the same realization late in her life and tried to change things, to which she was murdered. He's followed in her footsteps and fears the same thing happening to him. He wants Jupiter to be his heir in case that happens, and as such, asks her to marry him. Titus meets with Cain at one of the ship's airlocks. Cain, inexplicably, knows that Titus is a liar who intends to marry Jupiter, kill her, and take the Earth for himself. Titus monologues for a moment before shooting Cain into space. The airlock is equipped with emergency spacesuits that nobody thought prudent to remove. Cain uses one and survives. On Earth, Belem's new commander, Mr. Gregan, captures Jupiter's family. The Aegis arrive and save Cain just as he's running out of air. Jupiter calls Titus to her room because she's having second thoughts about the marriage. She's distressed and wants to speak to Cain. Titus lies and says that Cain attacked a servitant, whatever that is, and was sent back to prison. Jupiter, realizing she's totally alone, agrees to go through with the marriage. Cain goes to see Stinger and says he needs his help saving Jupiter from Titus. The wedding plays out while Cain and Stinger fight Titus's defenses. Just as the ceremony is nearing completion, Cain bursts through onto the ship and stops Jupiter from accepting the signifying bond. Jupiter is escorted by the Aegis back to Earth. They find Jupiter's family gone and Mr. Knight and General Gregan waiting for them. Belem has proposed an exchange. Jupiter abdicates her title of Earth, she gets her family back. Despite protests from the others, Jupiter agrees to this proposition. Jupiter is taken to Belem's base. Once she's through, Belem's men close the gate, barring the Aegis from following. Jupiter meets Belem in his throne room where they have a back and forth. Jupiter simply wants her family back, and Belem waxes philosophical about the nature of harvesting. Jupiter accuses Belem of killing his mother. Cain is worried about Jupiter, and Stinger gives him a pep talk saying that he knows Cain is in love with her and that he should go down and save her. Cain takes one of the ship's shuttles and blasts down to rescue Jupiter. He bursts through the glass dome that protects Belem's base and crash lands. It finally dawns on her that allowing billions of people to be made into youth juice just to spare her shitty family is an asinine decision. Mr. Knight interrupts, saying that the base's hull has been ruptured and the planet's atmosphere is causing the complex to fail. Cain bursts in and kills a bunch of Belem's people. He and Jupiter share their first kiss, and he covers her as she pushes her family to safety. An extended action sequence breaks out where Cain fights Mr. Gregan and Jupiter runs around the failing facility trying not to die. Jupiter has her final confrontation with Belem. He beats her with a pipe and monologues about the night he killed his mother. The platform the two are on breaks away, Belem falls to his death, and Jupiter is saved by Cain. The Aegis, having rescued Jupiter's family and are on the brink of being blown up, create a portal out of the facility, which Cain is just able to get himself and Jupiter through before it closes. Jupiter returns to her normal life on Earth cleaning houses with her family. She has a whole new disposition, at peace with her mundane job. The movie ends with Jupiter on a date with Cain, pondering her and the Earth's future. It's revealed that Cain has his wings back, meaning he's a skyjacker again. They kiss, fly through the sky, the end. So, as you may have gathered, Jupiter Ascending is a movie that's absolutely crippled by its poor writing. This movie is filled with omissions and baffling choices that make it nigh on incomprehensible at times, even on repeat viewings. Here are some quick examples. How and why did Khalik form an alliance with Magic Eye and Ponytails? Magic Eye doesn't want to tell Belem about Cain, a figure approaches from the shadows, cut to Khalik okaying a deal between them. There's no connective tissue to explain why Magic Eye wanted to double-cross Belem for Khalik, or how they got into contact with her at all. Was the man approaching from the shadows working for Khalik, here to make a deal? The only motivation Khalik would have to team up with these two is because of Belem's blockade, which hasn't happened yet at this point in the story. When Belem asks Mr. Knight if Titus is aware of Jupiter's existence, he replies,
"My spies whisper, but cannot substantiate."
We've already seen that Cain, who works for Titus, is on the planet actively searching for her. This line contradicts what we were just shown. Why can't Belem just be aware of Titus's intentions? Why does Jupiter need to use a false name at the clinic? Not only does it add nothing, but it also creates a plot hole later on in the film. If Jupiter used false information on her clinic paperwork, how did General Gregan find her family? As far as we know, Belem is never made aware of Jupiter's real name, let alone her address. Why didn't the Keepers take Jupiter's gene print when they discovered her in the closet? Why is Stinger posted to Earth? Hell, why do the Aegis have a presence on a privately owned planet to begin with? Do they work with Belem? If so, wouldn't that mean that Stinger reports to Belem? Were this the case, it's never posed as a conflict of interest. The movie at no point defines what a skyjacker is. The only thing we know of that differentiates them from regular Legionnaires is that they're given angel wings. How did the Hunters find Stinger's outpost? How did they know Jupiter and Cain were there? The detail between Cain and Titus is barely explained. We're only told in passing that Cain is working for Titus and that he's doing it to get back in the Legion. We never have a moment where this is quickly and concisely laid out, it's all said in blink and you'll miss it dialogue. It's also never properly explained how the detail between Titus and Cain was broken. In my plot summary, I said it's because Cain failed to bring Jupiter directly to Titus, but that's only an assumption on my part. I genuinely don't know what changed that led to the deal being broken. When Jupiter meets Titus, she's cold and reserved, distrusting of everything he says. This would suggest that, now that Jupiter has power and resources detailing her rights, she's unwilling to be pushed around anymore. In actuality, this is because off-screen,
your sister did tell me that you would do anything in your power to prevent me from claiming my title.
this actively weakens the scene. It's never explained how Stinger or Cain came to discover Titus's plans to murder Jupiter. We find out Stinger was aware because he told the Aegis, which is why they helped save Cain and Jupiter, but we don't know why or how he knows this. Did Titus tell him? Why would he do that? Cain also knows about it, but there have been no clues laid out to suggest Titus's intentions. How exactly did Jupiter come to the conclusion Belem killed his mother? It is at no point hinted to us, and even if it was, Jupiter would not be privy to this information. It's an accusation that comes out of absolutely nowhere. It should be noted that there are plenty more instances of omissions, plot holes, and general writing incompetence that I'm skipping over because you get the point. We also have a ton of jargon that's thrown at us in the worst way possible. The problem isn't the jargon in and of itself. All stories, be they sci-fi, fantasy, or otherwise, are going to have their own terms, titles, and slang. The issue is how the jargon is presented. The scene between the hunters towards the beginning of the film is a prime example of this pitfall.
I contend. Another hunter.
And ex-Legion. He was a skyjacker.
How'd you know that?
The boots.
There was a hunter in the Legion, a legend, to track a single gene in the Gaia.
No matter who or what he is, he's after our bounty.
These characters live in a universe where these terms are common, meaning they have no reason to define them. So, ideally, your dialogue should be constructed in a way where these terms are used, but context clues inform the audience what they mean. Here's how I would rewrite this dialogue.
Oh great, we have another hunter.
He is Legion. Special Forces. Skyjacker. Can tell by the boots. Standard issue. They're impossible to find on the black market.
Why would the Aegis send a skyjacker for our bounty? Shouldn't he be out fighting the latest pointless rebellion? Surely they're innocents and need to be slaughtered for the sake of an entitled's ego.
Spare us. We're here to get paid, not listen to you whine about your backwater planet, Vex.
He's not a legionnaire. Not anymore. It's Kane Wise.
The Legion's golden boy? Isn't he in prison?
Apparently someone sprung him. This is unfortunate. He's just a lycantant. How dangerous could one splice be? That splice is a legend. Was used as a hunter. Relentless in tracking a gene. Could find any person, in any settlement, on any Gaia, in any galaxy. He's not to be underestimated. Whoever he is, he's not getting our bounty.
I'm not going to pretend that my example is a masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination, but I constructed it in a way to give as much context as possible for the new terms. My rewrite better exemplifies what a skyjacker is, a special forces unit of the Legion that's sent out to fight battles. Since they go undefined in the movie, I made up a purpose. Sets up that the Aegis is an organization that oversees Legionnaires and skyjackers, shows the general public's disdain for the entitled, sets up Kane's backstory, defines hunters as bounty hunters, shows that individual people can be referred to as genes and planets can be referred to as Gaias, and sets up the relationship between the hunters. The third bounty hunter, who I named Vex, is an outsider who is not particularly liked by Magic Eye or Ponytails, who, as we later see, are close to one another. It makes it clear why they'd cut him out of their deal with Khalik and be okay with killing him. In addition to the comprehensibility issues, this movie is all around inefficient. Jupiter Ascending is 2 hours, which is plenty enough time to set everything up. A New Hope is the same length and did a far better job of establishing its universe and characters. Jupiter Ascending is not an unsalvageable dumpster fire. However, there are 3 things that would need to happen to make this script work.
Number 1.
The dialogue would have to be rewritten. Every line of dialogue should be twofold. It should propel the plot forward and show who the character speaking is as a person. The dialogue as is iffy. Some of it is fine and excellently portrays who these characters are. Other times it's impersonal and dull.
Number 2.
All of the comprehensibility issues would need to be fixed. If there's a plot hole, fill it. If there's a detail that contradicts something, cut it. If there's something important that the audience needs to know what's going on, make damn sure it's made clear.
Number 3.
If something's not necessary for the movie to function, it needs to go. I excluded it from my plot recap, but the first few minutes of the movie are all about Jupiter's parents, 2 teachers at the University of St. Petersburg.
Give me your fucking money!
The father dies, and the mother travels to America alongside her family illegally via a shipping container. This is completely pointless. The scene with Catherine needs to go. Aside from some characterization for Jupiter that could have been expressed elsewhere, the scene offers nothing. Catherine is not an important character, and the Keepers fail at their mission, making their attempt at the clinic redundant. Hell, the whole subplot of Jupiter selling her eggs to buy a telescope is completely useless. All of the characterization for Jupiter this subplot offers could easily be had as dialogue between Jupiter and Kane, where it would not only show who she is as a person, but also strengthen their bond as lovers. The plot being hard to follow, the plot holes, the bad dialogue, the pointless scenes, it all adds up to a movie that can be difficult to engage with. As such, for many viewers, elements that would normally be overlooked become more noticeable. Something that's often brought up is how Jupiter Ascending rips off other, better movies. This is exemplified best by the Nostalgia Critic and CinemaSins. It's an assertion that I wholeheartedly disagree with. Everything they label as rip-offs are either widely used tropes, staples of the sci-fi genre, or things that can only be considered similar if all context is completely stripped away. Every example they give can be neatly sorted into these 3 boxes.
So I'm officially setting up a side pod of annoyance, just to go over all the movies this film is obviously ripping off while I go through the review. At least he has his episode 1 shield while reenacting the Masters of the Universe movie. We then cut to... but the most phoned-in aliens farted out the cliched anus arrive news reaches Michael Crawford's falsetto. So I'll just point out how they're ripping off Superman Returns. The city, though, is immediately fixed, and the aliens wipe all of the people's memories. They decide to fight each other because they really like that cliche of two old friends meeting again and not getting along, but they manage to grab her and take her away, so she's taken apparently to a safe part of the verse. So you'll be happy to know that all that talking and exposition has been building up to something even more exciting. The person who kidnaps her is the brother of the last. He says he can take over her queenly duties if she marries him. So Tatum has to stop the beautiful love interest from marrying the evil bad guy as he blasts through a bunch of ships to stop the ceremony.
God, I could have come up with a higher total for this movie by counting moments it stole from other films instead of sins. Movie steals the cleaning girl wonders what it's like to wear rich people's clothes thing from Made in Manhattan. Discount purple-haired female Batman. Let's see, Chicago getting destroyed by attacking aliens, shots of the action from inside office buildings, tons of CGI. This movie is Transformers Dark of the Moon.
Why is this happening to me?
Jupiter Ascending steals the Why Is This Happening to Me from The Matrix.
A lie content needs a pack. It's the center of gravity.
This movie just took an unfortunate turn for the Twilight. Knock knock. Who is it? The Lost World Jurassic Park? Why, come on in and join the fun. Movie now thinks it's some sort of modern-day Brazil. Movie is also liberally stealing from the Akira Kurosawa film Akiru. Also, Sean Bean is playing a character who double-crosses the good guys cliche.
It comes from people.
Soylent Green?
Beauty and her beast.
Yes, how many more movies can we steal from? Let's try to break a record. Yeah, go ahead and shake a little Hunger Games over this thing. No one's gonna notice. Oh, you did not just Pacific Rim this bitch too, did you? You know, those suits look pretty Star Trek into... Oh, forget it. Meanwhile in Asgard. Meanwhile in Naboo. Meanwhile in Crematoria. Meanwhile in Barsoom. Meanwhile in The Fifth Element. Meanwhile in The Dark Aster.
Stories are not automatically bad for using tropes. They're inevitable. As long as it's well written and not by the numbers and cliche, you'll barely notice their presence nor care. All genres have different staples. Just as fantasy has dragons, magic, swords, warriors, sci-fi has giant mech suits, gravity-defying modes of transport, robots, and energy shields. These pop up in such a wide variety of stories because they're what we commonly imagine the future being like. Something I won't argue with, however, is how bad some of the action scenes look.
Honestly, this whole thing is filled with so much screen noise it barely registers as visual information. What's happening? Who knows? Did you know there are antelopes called dik-tiks? There are. It's amazing.
The fights in this movie are a mixed bag. For the most part, the firefights and hand-to-hand combat are fine. The shootout with the bounty hunters outside the clinic, the house battle, the fight Kane has with Khalid's guards, the match with Gregan, they're easy to follow and palpably exciting. Where this movie drops the ball is the aerial battles. My god, these are bad. The fight over Chicago isn't great, but I'd be more willing to forgive it if it were an outlier. It is not. The battle between Kane and Stinger and Titus's Warhammers is an affront to the eyes. This is visual vomit. It has the same problem as Michael Bay's Transformers movies. We have abstract, complicated, difficult to discern designs against dark backgrounds where the editing is so hectic it doesn't allow the eye to naturally move with the subject. With no way to know where you're even supposed to be looking, your mind sort of glazes over and takes in none of what's happening on screen. Plus, if you're watching this on anything less than a Blu-ray, the compression makes these scenes look even fucking worse. I ripped this from my DVD copy and woof, this looks like shit. I disagree with the common narrative that surrounds Jupiter, that she's a two-dimensional Mary Sue with nothing going on, who serves no purpose outside of being saved by Kane and asking questions. On the contrary, Jupiter is not a weak character. She's actually well fleshed out. Throughout the beginning of the film, we see Jupiter trying on clients' jewelry and clothes. This is clear visual shorthand that she's unsatisfied and envious. She's poor, she doesn't have many nice things, so the best she can do is vicariously live through those she works for. Jupiter's desire for more is later reinforced with an argument between herself and her cousin, Vasily.
Hey, cousin, speaking of money, I was wondering if...
Oh, let me guess. Another advance. For what this time? Shoes? A new phone?
I'll earn it back.
No, you mean you wasted trying to make yourself feel better by buying something you don't need.
So... but instead of feeling better, I should save my money and feel worse?
Exactly.
Jupiter, like many poor people, spends money that she doesn't have on physical things in an attempt to fill the void. And considering she's still asking for money and even going so far as to sell her eggs for some petty cash, we can see that this hasn't worked. Because, and I can speak from personal experience, it never does. It's never directly stated, but it's not much of a stretch to assume part of Jupiter's problem is that she isn't treated that great by her family. They're quite awful, actually. Vasily is an asshole. He's the one who assigns everyone their duties and is a complete tool towards Jupiter's mother.
Picked up a referral. A townhouse. It has to be Wednesday.
Wednesdays? Oh, 3 houses.
So do 4.
Ridiculous.
English, please. We use English in this house.
Use whatever you like. Sound like Darwin to me.
Stalin. I'm Stalin. You don't want the money. I will give it to Gleb's crew.
Good. Thank you.
We'll take it.
Big surprise.
After he chastises Jupiter for spending money in a way he doesn't like, he proceeds to say this.
Now, you're a smart girl, Jupiter. I admit it's none of my business, but it's probably the reason you are not married. Men do not like smart women.
Jupiter's mother sticks up for her, at which point Vasily's wife jumps in to defend her man, and a separate relative says he's got a point. After dinner, we're introduced to Vasily's son, Vladdy, who's even worse than his father. He was the one who introduced Jupiter to the idea of selling her eggs. When she's understandably not thrilled about going through with this, he proceeds to emotionally manipulate her.
You're not having second thoughts, are you?
What if I am?
These people, they're counting on you.
Have you even looked at this thing? Why do they have to use words like harvesting? It's just creepy.
Why would you read this? This money, I'm telling you, I have real plans, serious plans. I believe this money's gonna mean something, possibly life-changing for both of us.
We then get this lovely exchange.
Oh, wait, I have a question. Why is it that you get 10 grand and I get 5? I mean, they're not your eggs.
That's capitalism, babe. Shit rolls downhill. Profits flow up.
I hate this interaction because it makes Jupiter look like a complete dumbass. Also, this little weasel is blatantly lying to her. When he believes he has the money to spend, he immediately blows it on expensive crap.
It's life-changing, Jupiter. Wait till you see this thing.
2 million pixels of resolution. Everything I ever wanted.
At the end of the movie, the family pitches in and buys Jupiter the telescope she wanted. I get the impression it was less so because they actually cared about Jupiter's wants, but rather they wanted to make up for Vladdy's scheme, something the family was universally disgusted by.
I don't care what you wanted. You don't treat your cousin like chicken.
Good to know Jupiter's fertility is the only thing that'll get the whole family on her side. It makes Jupiter's choice between saving her family or letting the Earth be harvested look extremely tepid. Aside from her mother, her family has been unsupportive, disrespectful, treacherous, or has no screen presence at all. When Jupiter comes to the conclusion she can't sacrifice the Earth for them, we, the audience, are like, yeah, no shit, why would you? They suck. It's also made clear that Jupiter has problems in her love life. When Catherine asks Jupiter if she's ever been in love, she deflects, repeating something her mother said.
You know, my mom says that love is just a fairy tale for little girls. That really it's all just urges and obligations.
Later, she explains her issues to Kane through dialogue that sounds like it was written by a 14-year-old.
I have an uncanny ability to fall for men that don't fall for me. It's like my internal compass needle points straight at Mr. Wrong.
Despite what she told Catherine, it's clear that Jupiter does crave love. As soon as she's comfortable doing so, she wastes no time in flirting with Kane. Jupiter's dead-end life is perfectly encapsulated by the visual of her cleaning toilets. It's constantly referenced throughout the film.
No, my mother never cleaned a toilet in her life.
She's stuck doing the lowest of the low with no sign of ever being able to escape. It's why she wants the telescope so bad. The stars told her astrologist aunt she was destined for great things. They killed her father. He couldn't bear not being able to see them. There's something beautiful, something far away from Earth in all of Jupiter's problems. You can imagine that when she looks through that telescope, it brings her just a little bit of peace. It's been theorized this is the same telescope that was stolen from her father, but I'm not sure if I believe that. It would be thematically satisfying if it was, though.
My thought is that it's literally the telescope her dad had, and it's like calls to her somehow through the universe.
They're on eBay.
It has to be eBay because it is, when I say the same telescope, I mean, it's literally his telescope.
Does it have down at the cellar Russian?
All of this is a perfect setup for her arc throughout the rest of the film. Jupiter is seemingly given everything she desires. She's royalty, she has all the fancy clothes, wealth, and respect she could ever want. This is exciting for her, a fairy tale come to life. She's gone from scrubbing toilets to being one of the most important people in the universe. Of course, this comes at the price of her biological family's business. This life is only sustainable if she sends billions of people to be slaughtered to make youth juice. Having grown up amongst the people of Earth, she knows she can't do that. They're worth saving. This is Jupiter's want versus need.
In screenplay terms, motivation is described as want versus need. In a story, a character needs to grow or change or learn something for a satisfying character arc. And generally, the want and the need are related but aren't necessarily the same thing. The character is motivated by a want set up in the first act, and their growth is detailed by meeting a need at the end of the third act. Aladdin, want.
We'll be rich. Live in a palace.
Need.
I gotta stop pretending to be something I'm not.
Jupiter wants to be rich and important, but she needs to dismantle the system that thrives off killing humans. Perfect setup, perfect payoff. Jupiter goes from selfish desires to selfishly working towards the common good. Except I fucking lied, that's not what they do at all. No, Jupiter Ascending wants to have its cake and eat it too. The movie wants Jupiter to be a little selfish, but also wants her to be humble. She finally gets the outfit she's always wanted, and instead of being excited or flattered at the attention it brings her, she immediately changes out of it.
Actually, you know what? I'm feeling a little overdressed, so if you maybe have something that I could change into.
She hates when people respect her status.
Welcome aboard, Your Majesty. My name is Diamika Singh. I'm the captain of this Aegis prison.
Please call me Jupe.
Kane's the only one that doesn't make her uncomfortable simply because he turns her on.
Can you say that again? Just the Your Majesty part.
Your Majesty.
It's interesting. When other people say it, it makes me really uncomfortable. But when you say it, I don't know.
She gets all this wealth and power, yet seems disinterested and even afraid of it.
Well, you did it. It's official. You are now entitled.
Entitled to what? Like, free parking, key to the city? I mean, what does that even really mean? I will admit there are things about my life that I would like to change. That doesn't make me a different person. It doesn't change the things that matter to me or who I care about. I'm still the same me.
Hell, the end of the movie shows her choosing to go back to cleaning houses with no indication she has any plans for the future.
You think you'll ever tell them?
What, that I own the earth? Are you kidding me? They'd have me locked up. And I wouldn't blame them either. Besides, I'm still trying to understand exactly what it means to myself.
Or maybe it just means that Your Majesty's planet has a different future than the one that was planned for it.
The shift from selfishness to humility doesn't feel natural or justified. It comes across as though they were afraid of making Jupiter an unlikable character, so they toned down her flaws. Ironically, this allowed for a really uncharitable interpretation of Jupiter as a person. You could argue that Jupiter is performative. Deep down, she wants wealth and status, but knows showing that desire would make her seem shallow. So she feigns humility.
Yeah, Your Majesty might want to take a few of these. Portaling can be a little rough on the royal bowels.
Well, my bowels are anything but royal.
When faced with the tough reality of her biological family harvesting humans, she simply avoids it and runs away, going back to cleaning toilets because it's what she knows. Now, this is obviously not what the Wachowskis were going for, and it's not an interpretation that I agree with, but it's one that the poor writing allows for. The reason I don't buy the Jupiter is secretly a terrible person angle I proposed is because there are enough moments throughout the film that show she's a genuinely good person. There's this scene when Jupiter and Kane are escaping the city in a stolen car.
What are you doing?
I just want the owner of this car to know who borrowed it.
That's something I haven't seen in an action film before. Stealing vehicles is such a staple, it doesn't feel like anything. The backstory of the car and who owns it isn't important, it's just a prop. But Jupiter feels guilty for having to resort to theft and wants to make things right, if possible, even as she's running for her life. It makes sense with her background as a working-class woman. A car being stolen is a huge deal for most people, and she recognizes that. Jupiter is consistently kind to Kane.
Oh my god, you're bleeding.
Don't worry about it, it's fine.
Lucky for you. A woman owns this car.
What is that? Is that a...
I want to thank you for saving my life. I mean, I've never ever been so scared when I started falling. Then you were there.
On the Aegis ship, she asks Kane about him attacking an Entitled. When he becomes visibly uncomfortable, she apologizes. When he opens up to her, she tries to comfort and relate to him.
Stinger said that you attacked an Entitled once.
Stinger talks too much.
Is it true?
Doesn't matter.
Sorry, I get it. It's none of my business. I was just trying to understand.
Look, the truth is, I don't know why I did it. I don't even remember doing it. It just happened.
We all do things we can't explain.
I said it was in my genes. A defect of my genome engineering.
Could explain a lot of things about me.
Jupiter is emotionally intelligent. She cares about and respects Kane as a person despite everyone around her insisting he isn't worth it. Her friend Catherine is characterized as flighty, annoying, and foolish, yet Jupiter is patient with her and helps her calm down and gives her solid advice.
It sounds totally Cinderella, doesn't it? Sure. Why do I feel like I'm about to throw up? Oh, God. Oh. Just don't remember Cinderella puking. I remember her dancing with a bunch of mice. You want my advice? Yes. If he's really in love with you, then he'll understand that you're just overwhelmed and you need a little time. That makes sense. Yeah.
Hell, she even sympathizes with Kalik. When Kalik explains that her mother was murdered, Jupiter consoles her.
If your lives are so long, could I ask you how your mother actually died? She was murdered. Oh, God, I'm so sorry. Did they ever find out who did it? No.
These are all little things, but they add up to show that Jupiter is an all-around good person. She's someone you can genuinely root for and want to be saved from and defeat the villains. It frustrates me when people act as though Jupiter is this two-dimensional nothing of a character.
She said nothing interesting, done nothing interesting. She's just a complete and useless tool.
Unlike the plot and world building, most of what's laid out is easy to pick up on. Her characterization may be inconsistent, but it is there nonetheless. Jupiter's agency in the plot is also something people complain about.
I mean, this character has done nothing throughout the entire film. Her biggest contribution so far is asking if she could have a different dress. All she's done so far is get kidnapped. Jesus Christ, lady! Princess Peach is telling you to toughen up! You're being made fun of at dancel parties!
She's argued to be a sexy lamp, an object that's passed around from person to person. This is a claim that was refuted beautifully by Dan Olson, aka Folding Ideas, in his video. I'll just let him explain.
An empowered character is a character that has plot agency. Often, as a shorthand, we'll look at how a character moves through the plot, both literally and metaphorically. Are they a character who goes places, or are they a character who is brought places? Most of the time that works well enough, because a character who is varied from scene to scene is usually a character without a lot of will or agency. But that shorthand is, I feel, insufficient in this case, and so we need to look instead at composure. While Jupiter is often, very, very often, set on the back foot by other characters looking to manipulate her for their own ends, she is never made the fool by these manipulations. Rather than being pushed around by the plot is explicitly about Jupiter competing in an environment where the main weapon is information and she is fighting at a disadvantage. The fact that she's a quick study and is able to often hold her weight when the odds are stacked against her is a running theme of the film that injects her with an agency that is otherwise belied by the fact that she is so often carried from place to place while unconscious. This is a nuanced distinction, the difference between a character that is lacking in plot agency and a character that is deceived and manipulated by other characters. This, in my opinion, leans towards the latter. The plot is mired in politics, with power players maneuvering against one another, trying to use Jupiter and other characters as pawns in their corporate schemes. The main characters being tricked, deceived, cheated, betrayed. These are core elements of conflict in this kind of story. While she is being constantly told where to go and what to do, she frequently challenges these assertions and tries to exert her own will. She comes up with her own plans and maneuvers and pushes for others to yield to her instead. When she does accept things without question, it's an expression of trust, building further on the interpersonal conflicts at the core of the story. As a result, when her agency is subverted or denied, it is usually at the diegetic level, a result of conflict, a result of other characters trying to manipulate her, rather than being a story convenience for the writers. And this is why composure is the important element. As written and acted, how does Jupiter hold herself, and how is she then framed by the camera, the music, and the editing? Despite the fact that Jupiter is so often literally carried from place to place, the movie doesn't treat her as a thing, even as other characters do. Jupiter retains plot agency, even as the plot revolves around other characters trying to subvert her personal agency.
When Jupiter gets her entitlement, we see a shift in her behavior. Once she gets her rights laid out for her, she's willing to put her foot down. When Titus takes her captive, she's unfazed by his charm, and attempts to tear down everything he throws at her. Jupiter does relent to marrying Titus and almost goes through with the deal drafted up by Belem, but you never get the sense it's because she's stupid, it's because she's been backed into a corner and feels she has no other option. Are her choices naive? Sure, but she's also completely politically inexperienced. In one case, she's alone and being taken advantage of, and in the other case, she's terrified of her family being killed if she doesn't do what Belem wants. And in both situations, Jupiter has second thoughts. Before the wedding, Jupiter has a cold realization that what she's doing is insane and she can't go through with it. She tries to back out and only relents after Titus pressures and lies to her. When push comes to shove, Jupiter realizes she can't allow the Earth to be harvested just for the sake of her family. Both of these moments show that Jupiter indeed has thoughts running through her head. She's not some directionless prop. Jupiter is perfectly fine leaving the fighting to Kane, and I think people mistake that for her being weak.
If you've been waiting for a female sci-fi lead character on par with Ripley or Sarah Connor, get ready to keep waiting.
Don't get me wrong, I love Ripley and Sarah Connor, but it is kind of annoying that these two are the only valid women in science fiction action movies. I don't want to say it's sexism, but it's sexism. They're seen as the rare good female protagonists because they're macho and physically assertive. Jupiter's the antithesis, therefore she must be bad. And I don't think that's fair. My take on Jupiter falls in line with that of Princess Weeks.
There is never a sequence where she needs to be broken in order to become tougher. Jupiter is allowed to be casually tomboyish, but not in a sense that she fully rejects her femininity or that she is automatically inclined to be a muscle-bound gunslinger a la a lot of space people. She is very much allowed to be a strong female character without embracing all the things action films usually expect from that role. I think that Jupiter Ascending was an attempt by the Wachowskis as a way to sort of see how people would respond to a heroine who is not naturally inclined to be the things we expect a female heroine to be. And I love that, unlike how them writers did my girl Sansa, they never make Jupiter be cruel as a way of showing her be strong. She always shows mercy. She always tries to be kind. She isn't a cruel person because being cruel doesn't mean that you're strong, especially when you're fighting a bunch of cruel people.
A strong character is one that's fleshed out and motivated. As we've gone over, Jupiter is both. Kane, like Jupiter, is often seen as being a weak character. He's an archetype with no substance, a strong and silent, broody hero who spends the entire movie saving Jupiter with nothing else to define him. This is simply not true. Kane, as we'll get into, is not nearly as complex as Jupiter, but he's still far more fleshed out than people give him credit for. Kane's past is very bleak, starting from his very birth.
He's a lycantant without a pack. Had the bad luck to be born half albino, run to the litter. Splicer that bred him had to sell him to the Legion for a loss. But a lycantant needs a pack. It's their centre of gravity. Alone, usually they waste away and die, unless they become like him. Fearless, relentless. Perfect hunting machines.
He's seen as subhuman by most people and is an outcast even amongst fellow splices. Despite this, he thrived in the Legion as a skyjacker. Not only was he adept at hunting people down, but he was also well liked by his peers.
Kane was the best soldier I ever went into battle with.
Stinger was willing to partially take blame and have his wings cut off if it meant keeping Kane from being killed.
I tried to put him down, but he was under my command, so I took the blame. 2 scars across my back as a reward.
Minor character Damika Singh behaves in a way that implies she has a past with both Kane and Stinger. She has a rapport with Kane, and at the end of the film, when he takes a shuttle to save Jupiter, she says this.
Mr. Wise, of the matter of public record, I must inform you that I strongly advise against this reckless course of action that will almost certainly cost you your life. Off the record, I will tell you that you are a man of rare courage, and I pray your aim is true.
Kane's whole life was ripped away from him after he attacked an Entitled.
He attacked an Entitled. He bit him, tore his throat out. There's something about the royals for Kane. It's instinctual.
This whole incident is painfully vague. All we really know is that it happened with no further details given. This movie goes into excruciating detail about literally everything else, but the backstory of our secondary main character was not worth expounding upon, apparently. All we know is he was court-martialed and, since Stinger took the blame, was only stripped of his wings and sent to prison. It's been theorized that Belem was the Entitled he attacked. Were this the case, you'd think he could have just been fully healed with Regenex, but for how juicy it is, I'd overlook it.
So the whole movie, he just whispers and then screams. It's those two levels. Those are his he's here or he's here. But when he whispers, he has this weird like, I think the reason he does that, when we're introduced to Channing Tatum's character, Kane Wise, he tells this story about the reason he got kicked out of the Legionnaire was because he ripped the throat out of some higher up royal person.
We think it was him?
I think it was Eddie Redmayne, and it's never addressed in the movie. I think it was Eddie Redmayne, and the reason he talks like that is they somehow healed him, but it's still not quite better.
Well,
which doesn't make any sense. You think it would just be healed.
This incident casts Kane as a monster. It's claimed that he has a flaw with his genome engineering that causes him to have these violent reactions towards the Entitled. However, Kane's behavior throughout the film tells a different story. Throughout the entire movie, Kane is characterized as being extremely kind. From the very beginning, Kane treated Jupiter very well, even though he had no incentive to. She's nothing more than a target to be delivered to Titus in exchange for his reinstatement in the Legion. She's a meal ticket. When he first meets her, he has no idea she's royalty. As far as he knows, she's some random nobody. Were Kane the animal his genes supposedly make him, he'd be cold and standoffish toward Jupiter. He'd leave her in the clinic paper gown, tell her to be quiet and shut up, and leave all the explanations to Titus. No attachment, no emotional connection, she's just a job. But that's not what happens. Kane takes the time to find Jupiter new clothes to make her feel comfortable and give her some dignity. He gives her one of his guns.
Thought it would make you feel better when you woke up.
What?
The gun. But it works better if you flip the switch where you thumb.
He takes the time to answer some of her questions. He's articulate and patient, never judgmental or rude about her ignorance. He seems genuinely sorry that Jupiter is in this situation.
What if I say no? What if I don't go with you? What if I go home? What, are they gonna come after me again?
This is how Kane treats Jupiter throughout the entire film. When she's afraid to step out of the building into the tractor beam, he scoops her up to make her feel safer.
Our ride's here. You ready?
Ready. Ready to walk out of a 100-story window with you in your gravity boots onto an invisible
This might
spaceship.
make it easy.
Whoa! Okay. Sorry.
When Jupiter is upset they had to steal a car, he reassures her it was a necessity without being annoyed or condescending. After being picked up from colleagues by the Aegis, he brings her pills to ease her bowel pain that comes from portaling. When he recognizes that Jupiter is being genuine and not trying to be hurtful, he opens up about attacking the Entitled, giving his side of the story despite it being painful for him. After the deal between himself and Titus is broken, he still remains at Jupiter's side throughout her ascension process. He crashes a spaceship on 2 separate occasions at great personal risk to save her, even though Jupiter is technically no longer his concern at this point in the story. This is all at odds with the assertion that he reacts violently towards Entitled. Jupiter is royalty, but at no point before or after her royal status is revealed does he ever react violently. He doesn't grapple with animalistic urges, he doesn't so much as raise his voice at her. Despite how he was raised, despite his time in prison, despite his genetics, Kane is a good person. He may be part wolf, but he's a puppy dog of a man. This all sets up a perfect thematic element, that of nature versus nurture. Kane was bred and trained to be a weapon. His inhuman status is literally branded onto him.
You know, you both have marks in your neck, but they're slightly different.
Brand of the splicer.
However, he's one of the most human people in the movie. He's living proof that everything the people of this universe believe about genes is fundamentally wrong. Hell, I don't think his attack of that Entitled went down the way it's been described. There are no specifics. It's alluded that Kane attacked this person for seemingly no reason, that he was driven by a biological bloodlust. We've seen that this biological bloodlust towards the Entitled, in fact, does not exist. So, there must have been some other factor that that has been omitted. Perhaps the Entitled gave Kane orders to do something so immoral he couldn't go through with it. Maybe the Entitled was abusing him. Who knows? Now, because this is Jupiter Ascending we're talking about, nothing can be straightforward. There has to be some monkey wrench thrown in just to be annoying.
A lie content needs a pack. It's their center of gravity. Alone, usually they waste away and die, unless they become like him. Fearless, relentless, perfect hunting machines.
This is a line that could utterly destroy the themes I just laid out. Lycantins are genetically predisposed to desire a pack dynamic and become relentless hunting machines if deprived of that. Kane's whole reputation comes from his adaptiveness at hunting people. His need for a pack could explain why he wants to be back in the Legion so badly. Other Legionnaires may not be fellow Lycantins, but they're close enough. Hell, maybe that's why he became so attached to Jupiter so quickly. He's genetically predisposed to want to bring others into his pack. Two things. One, everything I just said is complete and utter speculation. None of this has any basis in the movie itself. We are in full headcanon territory. Two, if this is hypothetically the case, it could be written off as a Zootopia situation.
If the world's only gonna see a fox as shifty and untrustworthy, there's no point in trying to be anything else.
Kane could just be playing into pre-existing stereotypes because he was socially conditioned to. Kane is an incredibly simple character. He's a nice guy, he loves Jupiter, and he kicks ass. That's about it. It's kind of funny. Usually in these types of movies, it's the male character who has all the characterization, while the female character is the one who's boiled down to cheerleader love interest. Here, it's the opposite. It's obvious the Wachowskis were way more invested in Jupiter as a character than they were in Kane. It feels like there was so much potential for him that was either left on the cutting room floor or never utilized in the first place. I have to talk about the romance. It's my duty. I'm going over everything else. God damn it! The romance is the weakest element of the entire movie. Full stop. It's compulsory heteronormativity. These characters are like a Ken and Barbie being forced together. Not because it makes any sense, but because they're the main leads who are the opposite sex, and that's just what you do. Does the romance have potential? Of course. The basic setup is compelling. A royal who falls in love with her bodyguard. It's a tried and true trope. Hell, it's one of my personal favorites. They both love each other, status be damned, because they appreciate one another as people. They're two people who met by chance, whose relationship should have been purely transactional, yet it blossomed into something more. In theory, this romance is a slam dunk. In execution, it's a dumpster fire. The romance is given zero development. The relationship has no actual substance. All we get are a sprinkling of moments you can cut together into an AMV.
I love dogs. I've always loved dogs.
These two characters spent hours upon hours together, in the car escaping the city, on the Aegis ship, waiting in the Hall of Titles, yet we get no interactions between them to build their chemistry. It also doesn't help that, of all the actors, Mila Kunis and Channing Tatum were given just the worst direction. Mila Kunis is okay, considering she's working with the worst dialogue imaginable.
I have more in common with a dog than I have with you.
I love dogs. I've always loved dogs.
Channing Tatum, on the other hand, sounds like he knocked back a bottle of NyQuil before the cameras started rolling. This romance is a complete farce. It has enough bare bones for the intrepid fanfic writers of AO3 to make an actual interesting love story, but purely in spite of the original text. Jupiter Ascending is kind of amazing in that it has consistently good and interesting side characters. Well, except for one, but we'll get to him. Let's start with the Royal Tarts. I love the Abrasax siblings. They're affluent snobs, cruel, manipulative monsters who hide their malice behind the thinnest veil of politeness and flattery.
Belem, thank you for responding. We were just admiring this ledger from your latest success. Well done, brother.
The House of Abrasax continues to thrive, despite the squandering of your inheritance, brother.
I must say you're looking a little worse for wear. Could it be success does not agree with you?
And you look so well. Could it be that failure agrees with you?
You may have inherited Mother's head for business, but I inherited her heart.
What does that leave me?
Her beauty.
Liar.
Her humor.
Her unluckiness in love.
Her fetish for wrinkles.
Well, if this is to be another of your eulogies, Titus, I have more important matters to attend.
It's unfortunate they only interact with one another in this single scene because their chemistry is amazing. They're pompous and arrogant, thinking of their business as noble.
Life is an act of consumption. Now, the human beings on your planet are merely a resource, waiting to be converted into capital. And this entire enterprise is just a small part in a vast and beautiful machine defined by evolution, designed to a single purpose, to create profit.
They throw unnecessarily lavish weddings.
Who are all these people?
Just Sims. A necessary feature for all royal weddings. As I told you, these are matters of state, not of the heart.
And they are so above the people they cruelly slaughter, they know next to nothing outside of what they're told.
What was the name of this planet?
Zalantar, I think. Have you ever seen a harvest?
Oh, no, never. But I've heard they feel no pain. It's all quite humane, from what I've been told.
Well, there are marshals and administrators to make sure everything is done according to code, but still, can be rather affecting.
Now you sound like Mother.
Most of them are miserable in their lives, and what we do for them is a mercy.
Belem is my personal favorite of the three. A lot of it has to do with Eddie Redmayne's acting. He's able to take the subpar material he was given and spin it into pure gold. Belem's voice has an odd rasp that sounds legitimately menacing at times, while making him sound like he has a speech impediment at others.
My mother taught me what was necessary to rule in this universe.
It's then juxtaposed with his piercing screams. It's like the punchline to a joke. I laughed my ass off the first time I watched this movie. I must have replayed the clip a dozen times. Belem is Saturday morning cartoon levels of evil. When Jupiter insists she'll do whatever he wants to keep him from hurting her family, he orders Gregan to activate the harvesting machine her mother is strapped to just to make Jupiter scream and beg. He thinks of himself as above everyone else, including his siblings, Titus in particular. He rides an extravagant boat rather than walking, only to demean his subordinate for having the gall to welcome him home.
Welcome back, Lord Balem. It has been too long.
I have not crossed the vastness of space for your pleasantries, Mr. Knives.
Of course, my lord.
He sees himself as a god.
I create life! And I destroy it.
However, he's the least composed of the siblings. When things don't go his way, he throws tantrums. He screams at his staff, takes out his anger on General Skeleton.
Mr. Skeleton, how is it possible for a single splice to destroy an entire fleet of shadows?
It was a mistake.
The next mistake, I hold you accountable.
Oh, no.
Lord Balam! It was a hunters! They betrayed you in the name of your sister! Please! Mercy, my lord! Mercy!
Mr. Gregan, bring her to me.
And orders Jupiter be killed after she refuses to sign over the Earth, sheerly out of spite.
My lord, is that advisable without the abdication?
This man would rather take worse profits if it means keeping Jupiter from having the Earth.
I want this facility running at capacity. I want full diagnostics and cost projections for an early harvest.
Assuming market stability, if we harvest later this century, profit margin should eclipse your nearest competitor.
Understand this, Mr. Knight. I will harvest that planet tomorrow before I let her take it from me.
When she refuses to sign it over, he'd rather see her dead. If he can't have the Earth, she can't either. He has the emotional range of a child. Belem is also the most screwed up of the three. Titus wanted to marry Jupiter, his biological mother, but he made it clear it was purely for contractual reasons. Belem, on the other hand, he has some Oedipus shit going on. Unlike Titus and Kalik, who to some degree see Jupiter as her own person, Belem firmly sees her as his deceased mother, Seraphi. He projects all of his baggage onto Jupiter and makes it clear he's obsessed with the relationship he had with Seraphi when she was still alive.
You know, there are moments when I actually miss you. No one understands this universe like you did. No one understands me like you did. You should have stayed dead.
I am not your mother.
He flies into a rage when Jupiter accuses him of killing Seraphi.
Is that why you killed her?
How dare you!
And readily beats her with a pipe, monologuing about the first time he killed her.
Is this familiar, Mother? Does some part of you remember this slag idea? Well, this is how it began. We were fighting. Do you remember what you said? You told me you hated your life. It's the truth. And you begged me to do it. You begged me to do it!
He chose to stay in the imploding facility instead of escaping on a shuttle just to take his revenge on Jupiter. He speaks to the person he sees as his mother in a very intimate way, strokes her face, gives her this smile. Yeah, he wants to fuck his mother. Unlike Belem, who's cold and blunt, Titus is warm and charming. Say what you want about Jupiter, but it's unsurprising she fell for his lies. He's the only one of the three siblings to use Jupiter's preferred surname, Jones. He's able to obscure his malintentions with flattery and gentle tone. He keeps his cool even when being accused of wrongdoing. Throughout their dinner, Jupiter pushes back against everything Titus says, yet he's still cordial. Even when he wants to be hurtful, be it to Kalik or Jupiter, he never drops his smooth and sultry tone. He thought his charm was so strong he'd be able to convince Belem to sell him the Earth by appealing to his brother's love for Seraphi.
It was her birthday recently. You know I get sentimental, and I was going through some of Mother's old sheave work, and I came across a description of a planet she claimed was the most rare and beautiful estate she ever owned. Earth. It was part of your inheritance, wasn't it, brother? I was quite moved by her description, and I was wondering if there was any chance you might be willing to part with it.
Titus, didn't you bother to look at the sheaves? That planet is worth more than all of your estates combined.
Really? I had no idea.
When this, unsurprisingly, fails, he takes it in stride. He's presumably used to rejections from Belem, but the dinner scene with Jupiter hints he's not used to pushback from others. When Jupiter continually shuts him down over and over,
Your Highness looks ravishing.
What have you done with Cain?
I know you do not trust me right now, but I promise I am not your enemy. Mr. Wise and I had an arrangement. He broke our contract. For that, I promised to return him to the Deadland.
Is that open to negotiation?
I confess I feel I have you at somewhat of a disadvantage.
Is it because you kidnapped me?
From the moment I saw your gene print, I knew so many things about you because I was very close to my mother. At this point, I probably know more about you than you know yourself.
Shoot.
Just like her, always expecting the worst from people.
Funny how often people exceed those expectations.
That distrust in others, in the world, and even in yourself has made it difficult for you to fall in love. Until now, you're in love with Mr. Wise, aren't you?
I'm sorry to disappoint you, but this isn't love. All Mr. Weiss wants from me is to make him a legionnaire again. Your sister did tell me that you would do anything in your power to prevent me from claiming my title.
What makes you think Kalik told you the truth?
Why would she lie?
Kalik is in competition with Belem. She knows that the loss of the Earth will reduce his yield and impact his position in the market. His loss is her gain.
Same can be said for you.
he pauses, unsure how to take things. He quickly recovers and changes tactics to appeal to Jupiter's humanity and life on an underdeveloped world, but it is satisfying to see him squirm a little, even if just for a few seconds. Unlike Belem, who is completely stoic when taking revenge on those he feels wronged or failed him, Titus absolutely revels in it. He is outright gleeful when he meets Cain in the airlock.
You should have told me the truth about why you wanted her.
What good would that have done? If I did, then Jupiter would be dead, and Belem would still own the Earth. Lies are a necessity. They are the source of meaning, of belief and hope. Honestly, lies are sometimes the only reason I get out of bed. I'm particularly fond of the lies we tell ourselves. It's like the lie you are now concocting that somehow you will survive being tossed into the void and find some way to rescue Miss Joan.
He's extra in all the best ways, unsurprising since he's characterized as being extremely indulgent. He squandered his inheritance, throws a lavish wedding despite it being wholly unnecessary for his plans, throws Cain out the airlock to prolong his suffering rather than just shooting him, and has a
PG-13 mostly clothed floating orgy.
When he's thwarted by Cain, he doesn't give either of them the satisfaction of being upset. He doesn't break down to a blubbering mess like Belem. Instead, he merely smiles sweetly, gets in a couple of jabs, and leaves it at that. Kalik is the most nebulous of the three. Her motivations surrounding Jupiter are quite vague. Throughout her time with Jupiter, she stresses that she sees her as family, she wants a do-over with the mother-daughter relationship they had when Serafi was first alive.
My mother and I did not always get along, but I have a hope that this recurrence might mean a second chance for both of us.
Abrasics don't know any side but their own.
Precisely. And since Jupiter isn't a Brassix, you can understand why I helped her get off that planet.
However, it's possible that she was keeping Jupiter out of Belem's hands for the sake of her own interests. I personally believe the latter, though the movie never makes it clear one way or another. Kalik is just as manipulative as Titus. She's very coy when presenting information, giving non-answers and dodging questions.
A long time ago, someone figured out how to replace deteriorating cells with new ones. Today, it's as easy as changing a light bulb.
Where do you get these light bulbs? I was told the house of Abrasic seeded the earth. Is that where you get it?
Your Earth is a very small part of a very large industry. Feel my skin.
Oh, wow.
She appears to be quite dependent on others. All the siblings have their right-hand men, Belem Mr. Knight, Titus Famulus, and Kalik Maledictes. However, Kalik also has an entourage of handmaidens everywhere she goes. They serve her food, set up her Regenex pool, hell, they even lead her out of the water as though the bitch will fall over without their help. Sure, Belem has some servants, and Titus has his concubines, prostitutes, the hell are these women? But they still are able to function independently. It's a subtle detail, but one that I noticed and appreciate. In her final scene, she embodies something infuriating that conservatives do. She's fully of the belief that splices are lesser than most people, certainly entitled. Yet she still sexualizes Cain.
Ah, this must be the Hunter Titus hive. Well made by the look of him.
It's that delicious hypocrisy where bigoted people are sexually attracted to the lesser, but still want to see them subjugated. While we're at it, here are some honorable mentions for Jupiter Ascending side characters. Stinger is one of the more boring characters. His dialogue is bland, mostly answering questions when first introduced. All we really know is that he likes Cain as a person, even now after everything Cain put him through. He loves his daughter, willing to send Jupiter to the clutches of Titus in exchange for Recode to cure his daughter of the bug. Don't ask me what either of those things are because I don't know. Likes Jupiter, hence the hug he gave her after she was picked up from the Kaliks, even though he barely knows her, but whatever, and is able to recognize that Cain is in love with Jupiter and supports their relationship. He is one of the worst written characters in my opinion, only made palatable by the impeccable acting from Sean Bean. Jupiter's mother. She feels like a real person. Her story is tragic, having gone from a teacher of applied mathematics at a prestigious university to cleaning houses for peanuts. She's highly protective of her daughter, not bowing to the same sexist ideals of her family. She's the only family member I didn't want to see killed by Belem. I could not give two shits about the rest of them. She's not given much screen time, but what she is given characterizes her as down-to-earth and likable. Famulus. This character has like 4 lines in the whole film, but serves cunt for each and every one of them. She is unbelievably sassy. She's sly and treacherous and taunts Cain when he's locked up, seemingly just for her own amusement.
We've committed no crime.
About detaining a royal.
Her Majesty is hardly detained.
Where is she?
Dining with Lord Titus, of course.
Unless they've moved on to dessert.
She's 90s Disney villain levels of deep, and I am here for it. If this movie were actually decent, she'd probably be a fan favorite. Advocate Bob. This character is in precisely one scene where he's helping Jupiter throughout her ascension process, and the entire time, he's hilarious. He's an android, yet is incredibly human. He's prissy and a suck-up. He's patient, only to a point. As time goes on, he starts to lose it until, when they hit a particular snag, he just gives up and pays off the guy he's talking to move things along. He's beautifully acted and quite enjoyable to watch. Damika Singh. Her actress brings so much life to this bit character. The movie never explains how or why, but it's clear she has a past with Cain and Stinger because she has strong feelings for them, be it genuine disgust at Stinger's actions handing Jupiter over to Titus.
Better get a move on. Don't sound like Cain's got a lot of time.
Put him back in the brig.
Or giving Cain her support for saving Jupiter.
Off the record, I will tell you that you are a man of rare courage. And I pray your aim is true.
Her actress plays her as competent and impassioned, able to sympathize with someone she, I guess, considers a friend, or strongly advising Jupiter not to trust Belem's cartoonishly evil underling. It's a tiny role, but she left an impact on me regardless. It absolutely infuriates me that Jupiter Ascending isn't a better movie because the Wachowskis created such an awesome universe that goes to waste because of how subpar the script is. Seriously, I'm gonna have fun just describing how this universe works. First off,
you've been taught that the birthplace of the human race is Earth, but it's not. It's actually a planet in the Canabulum system called Orus, a little over 1 billion of your years ago. Your planet was discovered during what is commonly called the Great Expansion. At the time, Earth was inhabited by a branch species of Saurosapian, a dangerous human predator called a Sargon. Obviously, before any colonization or resource development could be done safely to your planet, a large-scale extinction event was manufactured.
Wait, are you saying your people killed the dinosaurs?
Technically, they're your people, Majesty.
Since humans mastered space travel, the way humanity sees resources has changed.
In your world, people are used to fighting for resources, like oil or minerals or land. But when you have access to the vastness of space, you realize there's only one resource worth fighting over. More time. Time is the single most precious commodity in the universe.
More time is achieved through the use of a special fluid.
'Tis many names. Regenex, Resell, Nectar. There are various levels of usefulness and quality.
According to Kalik,
Each of us has a code for our optimal physical condition. The problem is our genes have an expiration date, which is transferred to our cells. A long time ago, someone figured out how to replace deteriorating cells with new ones. Today, it's as easy as changing a light bulb.
the cells used in Regenex must be specially grown, which is where harvesting comes in.
Human DNA spliced with indigenous species to evolve a fertile population. And that's where the why gets ugly. Basically, the goal is to grow a population as large as possible. Once the population exceeds the planet's ability to sustain it, it's considered ripe for harvest.
Your planet is a farm. There are thousands of planets like yours set up by families like mine to supply an ever-increasing demand for more time. It comes from people. Each unit is refined from approximately 100 human beings.
At some point, Regenex manufacturers attempted to use clones as an alternative. However,
Clones lack genetic plasticity. Several million years ago, a gene plague caused by cloning nearly annihilated the entire human race.
I assume genetic plasticity refers to how far genes can be stably manipulated. I presume that the genes of clones are weak, meaning they deteriorate over time. So, if used in Regenex, the cells die off, leading to faster aging. Since cloning nearly annihilated the human race, perhaps when clones mingled with humans it led to birth defects or shorter lifespans. That leads me to wonder, was there a potential cleansing where anyone who was a clone or had cloned genetic makeup were terminated for the good of humanity? Genes are a huge part of this universe's culture.
Your planet is just now entering its genetic age. You understand very little about something which is a vital part of our reality. In our world, genes have an almost spiritual significance. They are the seeds of our immortality.
Who you are doesn't matter. Your genes are what define you. That's why bees are genetically designed to recognize royalty. It denotes your importance.
No, bees are genetically designed to recognize royalty.
You are in for a surprise when you find out what I do for a living.
No, it's not what you do. It's what you are. They sense it. Bees aren't like humans. They don't question or doubt. Bees don't lie.
Entire species are genetically engineered or altered to be slaves, essentially.
Keepers. They're from the diorite system, but they're genetically repurposed to act as monitors and watchdogs. Genome-engineered human. They cut my DNA with the DNA of something like a wolf. I'm a lycantin bred for the military.
The lower class are discriminated against for being genetically impure. Yet, Regenex is made from humans that have been spliced with the inhabitants of the planets they're being seeded onto in order to survive. By the logic of splices are genetically impure, that would mean anyone who uses Regenex is also genetically impure because their pure cells are being replaced with genetically altered ones. The Wachowskis created a beautifully broken universe, one where people are arbitrarily subjugated because of their genes, when, in practice, it's all total bullshit. This universe's flaws are perfectly encapsulated in the Ascension scene. An android whose sole purpose is to succinctly guide people through the legal system still struggles to get things done. The system is so cumbersome and bloated, so difficult to maneuver that bending the code of conduct was the only way to get Jupiter her entitlement.
I did 3 tours in Abu Kesh, a battle that cost the lives of 2 million soldiers, and I'd rather be back there than have to deal with these bureaucrats.
This is the authentic recurrence of her ladyship, the Abrasic sovereign, and we have come to claim her title.
You need to file an inheritance petition. And if the title is held, you'll need a transfer of title.
File a quitclaim through Central Services, Section 918. Next.
You need a title survey and gene print identification from wills and trusts.
I can't touch this without a tax number from the Revenue Review.
This is revenue request, not revenue review.
Method sort, clause part tax identification sort.
We can't get the title without the tax ID.
These blicker. Clat coat.
I think you dropped something.
Press your thumb in the depression. Seals and signets are on sub 33.
The perfect groundwork was laid for Jupiter to step in, see the corruption this universe faces and the growing discontentment from its people, and to want to do everything in her power to change things. Sure wish they actually did that instead of doing absolutely nothing with anything they set up. An element of the world building I find rather odd is the concept of recurrences.
When the exact same genes reappear in the exact same order, it is for us what you would call reincarnation.
This phenomenon is so common that entitled write their potential selves into their wills.
Well, it's common for people in the first estate to leave a trust for any potential recurrence.
Reincarnation is a fantasy element. It clashes with the rest of this movie's world building. Of course, realism isn't something this movie is concerned with. Jupiter Ascending is sci-fi in that it deals with futuristic technology and space travel. However, it's more fantastical than many of its counterparts. All of the devices we see, from Kane's shield to the machine that creates signifying wedding bonds, are opulent and baroque. The ships have jagged, segmented designs. They have wing plates that, based on speed or direction, will expand or contract. They act like sails, extending to propel the ship forward or catch it to slow it down, or constricting to gain bursts of speed. It has absolutely no basis in any kind of realism or practicality. However, that's not the point. The point is to look cool. This movie reminds me a lot of Treasure Planet. It takes place in space, yet much of the technology is a mix of futuristic tech and steampunk. Simple communication devices used by Kane and Stinger are massive machines with a complex web of controls. Kane's shield and device that allows you to walk through walls are both controlled by this ridiculous wind instrument looking thing attached to his gloves. The machine that gives Jupiter her entitled mark is a Rube Goldberg looking monstrosity that has so many unnecessary steps. The technology in this universe is more supernatural than it is scientific. Spacesuits form from thousands of segmented plates that also contain the internal mechanisms needed, as well as a supply of air, somehow. There's the device that allows Kane to go through walls, that leads to the coolest death scene in the entire movie. There's an aerosol spray that instantly heals wounds. The disguise the Keepers use and that Belem watches footage of the clinic battle are made of energy pixels that are somehow able to be physically interacted with. It's all rather silly. The silliest element is, hands down, bees being genetically designed to recognize royalty, though Skyjacker's getting
best bioneural synaptic prosthetic the military could buy
is a close second. It's goofy, it's bizarre, it's wild, it's absolutely amazing. I've never really seen anything attempt the kind of style this movie has. The only real criticism I have for the art direction is that many of the scenes are too dark and moody for their own good. Lighten things up, let me see more of the detail. Speaking of details, there is an element of this movie that is so brief, so blink and you'll miss it, so not the focus of the scene that I have to talk about. Belem's boat has a figurehead of a golden woman with opulent hair and a massive headdress. You'd think she'd just be a statue, but you can can just tell that she's alive. She can move. This one detail opens up a deliciously morbid question. What is this thing? Is she a real person who's had her limbs removed, her torso fused to the boat, a tangle of wires sticking into her to keep her alive? If so, where did she come from? Was she specifically grown for this purpose? Was she from a harvesting planet? More likely, she's a synthetic machine of some type. But if that's the case, why does she look so miserable? If a synthetic can feel emotion, can be unhappy with being a limbless torso fused to a boat, that means this society has created sentient beings that are even more subjugated than the splices. Splices are dehumanized, but at least are recognized as human beings, while the feelings of synthetics are not even acknowledged. This has horrifying implications for this universe, all of which are completely within my own imagination because this movie doesn't explore any of that. This is why I wish this movie were a TV show, because it would allow for all of these amazing elements to breathe, to be given time to shine. When Jupiter wakes in Calic's Alcazar, she's greeted by a robotic entity over a loudspeaker.
Good evening, Your Majesty. Allow me to assist. I am Sendi, your chamber presence. We wish only to attend your needs.
What if Jupiter had more time alone with this being, where she started talking to it as if it were a person, and the computer was confused by her kindness, speaking to it like an intelligent being instead of a tool? That would show not only the unfairness with which synthetic beings are treated, but also show Jupiter's humanity and compassion for the less fortunate. I feel like the daughter of a shitty father. I want to baby this movie. I can fix it, I swear, it's not bad, you're all wrong, it just needs a little change and it'll be a functioning work of art. I love Jupiter Ascending. I can't help it. There's too much good stuff in here. While there are plenty of non-issues people raise with the movie, at the end of the day, it is deeply flawed, almost all of it stemming from issues with its writing. However, buried within the poor writing is an expansive and fascinating universe. While they were brought to life with questionable acting, Jupiter and Cain are compelling characters, on paper at least. The Abrasic siblings are antagonists you love to hate. The film is brimming with campy, silly ideas that captivate for better or worse. I genuinely hope this movie gains more of a cult following as time goes on because it very much deserves it.